I'm Danielle Krakora. I am a 10-year Army veteran. I was a combat medic and then a medical service corps officer. When my older kids were very young, I resigned my commission because I was traveling all the time, deploying all the time, and I needed something more stable. So I joined the VA and I started serving veterans in another capacity. And I really fell into my own. I live in Cleveland, and I started at the Cleveland VA Medical Center right from the very bottom, scheduling appointments and greeting veterans at the door. And I moved my way up through the organization really quickly. I spent another 10 years there. And recently I started my own business. So just like you, founder, veteran of a brand new company called Ibility. It's kind of a play on words where innovation meets ability. And we're here to continue to support veterans and the federal government at large.
Great. And again, I think that leads us into our, where we wanted to take our first question is just around background, your current role, which you've highlighted quite succinctly. And it sounds like, a mirror image of, the path that, I took myself joining the military straight out of high school, graduated early parts of 1996. Wanted to serve. I had family members that had not served in the U.S. military, but actually the British in the Jamaican military. And so had a strong sense of serving no matter where where I was. And so I happened to move here at a young age. And so I wanted to get in the military, was in love with medicine from an early age. And so medic appealed to me. Then the other positions that they were offering, and ended up joining, again, same MOS as a 91 Bravo combat medic. That took me to Fort Lost in the Woods, Missouri.
Fort Leonard Wood.
And then to San Antonio for my baby Bravo training.
Yeah.
And then, did some time there at Bragg, and then ended up, going overseas. But I think you just touched on a point where, after taking a uniform off due to injuries, so I was med boarded here in the Washington, D.C. area. And then that sense of service and where I was going to move to next kind of started popping up. And of course, naturally, we gravitate to, serving others as usual. And so I went to Howard University, graduated there, and jumped right back in. Started working at the VA, same thing like you did. I started off as a nurse assistant.
Okay.
They needed some muscles to fit those heavy patients at the DC VA while I attended Howard University for those 3 years that I was there. And then I had the opportunity when I graduated, the next parallel path was to either go back into emergency medicine as a physician or go in as a researcher at the FDA. And so, going through a divorce at the time made better sense to be employed. And so joined the FDA early parts of 2006, where I covered medical device and drug products. Worked that channel for about 6-7 years, did some good work. CEDAR, which is the Center for Drugs, then wanted me to come over there and do the same thing in the regulatory aspect of the drug products. So left medical devices, went over to drugs, worked there for a couple of years. And then the VA was looking to help look at PTSD biomarkers in early 2013 with the huge suicide prevention movement around trying to figure out ways how to treat vets and find different treatment mechanism. And so I jumped on that call too and went up to New York and oversaw a lot of the PTSD research that was being done. And so, about 3 years into that project, we were able to get a patent approved for PTSD biomarkers to look at.
That's amazing.
Yeah, for predisposition. And I know I made another crazy jump as a medic. It was, now I need to go learn how to commercialize.
That is a crazy jump. That is not an easy thing to do.
But as medics, we had to figure it out, right?
That's right.
We triage the situation and we always figure a way out. And so I had no idea of business acumen. I just knew I was driven by passion, that I needed to do something. And this was the area that I knew well, which was, I had that medical and the biochemistry background to at least attempt to commercialize a product. And it was humbling to see that the Mount Sinai Medical School was able to see the value and the vision and trusting me with that patent that we are now trying to get some activity around to help with the suicide. So yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. So I think in parallel path, I wasn't expecting anything more spectacular from another medic. Uh, so so it's good to see that we had that same idea and vision around supporting after we got out of the military, our military roles, but still staying to the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it takes a special person to be a medic, really. I mean, once you're a medic, it's always kind of in your heart, I think. You have a drive to care for people and want to fix things, want to fix problems. I think that's the biggest thing that I took away from my time in the military was being adaptive, being agile, and being able to see the big picture and fix the problem in front of you amidst all the chaos. That I'm telling you, I was deployed 0506 with the 3rd ACR, and at the time we were at Fort Carson, Colorado. So let me take it a step back, because you gave the long military introduction. I'm going to just share a little bit about mine. I came from a family where nobody served. I was the first person in my family to serve, and I graduated also early from high school, and I wanted to be a doctor. And I thought I've always been competitive. So I thought, hey, if I join the military as a combat medic, I'm going to look really good on college application, essays against all of my peers, right? I'll have something that they don't have, because I'll still be able to go the same time as my peer group. So that was what was going through my head, and it was called the call to duty enlistment contract. It was 15 months active duty, 2 years in the reserves. So I thought I could do that in my sleep, no problem. Little did I know that meant that you were going to deploy, and then I was stop lossed, and I ended up spending 10 years instead of 15 months. And I did not go to med school, but I learned an awful lot. And when I came back from Iraq, I had the pleasure of training other combat medics that were getting ready to leave, and helping them kind of mentally and physically prepare for what they were going to see when they're over there, because nothing can prepare you for that, I don't think, but I at least wanted to try. So I went to undergrad at Cleveland State University. I got a degree in health science, and I really still at that point thought, well, maybe I'll be a doctor. Maybe, I'm not sure. And I was doing a lot of research at the time. I was a research assistant, kind of like you. I worked in a biochem lab, and I also did some ethnographic research on health disparities in the Latin American community, especially as it relates to infant mortality. So it was really interesting stuff. And I was really, really intrigued by it. But I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. Went and got a master's in health science. Again, still didn't know what I wanted to do. But I found my calling in the VA, really. I was able to have amazing mentors that allowed me to go out into the community and work with nonprofit organizations and work with community veteran engagement boards and give our population a voice. And there's just so much work that needs to be done, and I got to see that in a really impactful way. And although I had this really fun and amazing professional career, I think what I'm more proud of is the work I do in the community. I sit on the Fisher House board. I'm also on a board for LEAP. It's a local Cleveland organization that helps people with disabilities. I'm very passionate about that. I'm on the Ohio Women Veterans Advisory Board, and also there's a new nonprofit that's standing up in my county for veterans that they help with food insecurity and stuff like that. So it's just it's part of who I am, and I learned that from being in the military and being a medic, and it's really an enjoyable life. And that's why what you guys are doing is just, it's amazing. It truly is. And it appeals to my heart is what it does.
Yeah, I think medics, we lead with the passion and heart.
That's right.
So
That's right.
there's pros and cons to that. Which leads me to my next question is, how have you been able to apply what you learned in the military? I think you touched on it in now your professional and, personal pursuits.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, just to reiterate, adapting and overcoming, looking at what's in front of you, focusing on the problem and fixing it amidst the chaos. I think that's probably the single most important thing that I've done that's made me so successful professionally, is being able to focus on what's in front of me and knocking it out, getting it done, doing it well, and moving on to the next thing. I think that's important. Plus, like we both just said, leading with heart. Having a passion and caring about people, genuinely caring about people, about humanity, and being empathetic to the situations around you. I think that, and leave the world a better place. So all of those things I learned in the military. How about you?
Yeah, well, again, I think we have that in similar. We went in young, right? So the military had a good shot and opportunity to steer us in the values and belief, and I think I echo the
That's
same
right.
thing that you do. Selfless service, leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity,
Yep.
and personal courage.
How could you ever forget that?
All right. So that was ingrained in us from day one. And so, it's, but I think what you just mentioned, there had to be some level of heart and passion for you to choose that profession, because it's not for the faint of heart, right?
That's right. Yep.
It's rewarding, but also, comes a lot of other grief with, losing members and losing individuals. And I think for me, as you said, the ability to persevere, to knock things out, and triage, is what the word we used to use. I still do that to my day-to-day now with they call it strategy now, but but it's really triage and making
That's
sure
right.
there is some rhymes and reasoning on the things that you do. But I think the other thing is like you just mentioned, I think from a leadership and vetpreneurs like ourselves, it highlights our ability to lead, because we went in young individual men and women, but what a lot of people don't realize, that we were in charge of people's lives and making sure that people's lives were saved, and treating people. And so that's a different level of respect that the community, the military and veteran community, always gives medics, because they understand that we had to have the ability to, work on and treat patients indifferently, whether they...
Yes, that's a great point. That's a really good point.
So those are some of the skill set that, I use on my day-to-day life now in starting business. And like you said, being able to get stuff done. I think, that's been something that's always been instilled in us, given our combat medic training. And so, I'm always thankful for the route that I took, because it's definitely made me the man I am at getting in at that young age, and then being responsible for people's lives at 17, 18. That does something to an individual.
Sure does. Yep.
So again, I think you've touched on a couple of things. You're in a state that has some high visibility around food insecurity and health disparities, as well as myself here. I'm in Washington, D.C. And so I know we shared some slides with you, just looking at the health disparities that are affecting and the underrepresentations of minorities in the trials, and women across all different ethnic background. And so, one of the things I wanted to ask was, what's your, first reaction to that? And, again, I think, share with me, because you do have a little bit of that insight and background, and sounds to me like some of the professions and positions that you're holding now would definitely touch around, some of the problem that, Indigenous Health is trying to solve. So wanted to just get your first take when you saw this, and get your feedback on you know, some of the areas here that we've touched on that could be a highlight where Ibility and Indigenous Health could work together on.
Yeah, absolutely. I did look at these earlier, and it's appalling. It's appalling. It's scary, actually. I was trying to think of a really concise way to explain my reaction, but I'm just horrified, to be honest with you. When I first learned about your company and learned what you were trying to do, it made sense. But seeing the statistics really lands at home. The need to improve upon diversity in clinical trials. I think back to the veteran population in Cleveland when I look at this, and the majority, I mean, we're an urban medical center, right? Although we have outpatient clinics in 24 counties, 13 of them actually, the main campus in Cleveland is urban. And the majority of the folks that we care for are of African ancestry. And they have all of the next slide, you'll see all of the problems and, the different genetic conditions and things that, yep, there you go. All of those things and more. They're no different. They affect veterans as well. And I think that the VA is a unique organization because we really look at the whole veteran, right? We don't just look at their health. We look at all of the other things that touch their health adjacent to that. So are they living in poverty? Do they have transportation? Do they have education? Do they have access to food? Do they have social support around them? All of those things really contribute to their overall health. But the one thing that we never really thought about, at least it never crossed my mind, was how are the medications that we're using to treat their illnesses, are they actually the right medication for that patient? Is there a better medication that might work? Is there something that would help alleviate their symptoms and their suffering faster or better, or with causing less damage? And I think that the answer is that we need to do a better job of finding that out.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, unfortunately for me, this has been a burden that I've been carrying since I started the FDA in 2006. So I've seen the numbers, again, because I used to do reviews at the agency. And so that was my first shock to the lack of, when I started reviewing, patient sample size, randomization. And, I think what highlighted it for me when I was at the FDA, I think one day I finally had gotten enough experience and a little bit of chops to just ask the pharma company of the high dropout rate that they had. And I said, could you share with me, some of the rationale for the high dropout? And, when they gave it to me, it was staggering because you didn't have to see the names to understand that these were things that affect minority and Hispanic community. It was like, couldn't get back to the trial for the second interview, had transportation problems.
Yeah, all of those. Yep.
All of these, the food desert thing you talked about. Yep. And so, that resonated with me for over the last, 15 years because, as, I started to move up in my career and understanding clinical trials, it just got worse. And so, living in inner city Miami and in Broward County in Florida, I didn't know what good healthcare was until I got into the military. So I think the other thing that was helpful for me is to go through those iterations of healthcare, from going to kind of a baseline healthcare service, urgent care, to actually having good health insurance at the military that I could go and get seen for illnesses and aches that I had, and then getting out and then having, worked at the VA and having the Blue Cross and the Blue Shields of the world. It's night and day, right? It's night and day, and that kind of helps shape, what we're looking at here and some of the things that, we're trying to address. But again, it's going to take a village because, these numbers have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So, While, again, we could start to increase the diversity and try to add more women to the trial, there's going to need to be some policy stuff involved as well. And that kind of leads us into our next questions about, the underfunding of some of these research as the other slide shows. I think that's a big policy area that, we're looking to, once we're able to drive, what we're doing here to get the membership engagement and enrolling
Yep.
with our rollout of Bias for All, is to start focusing on these areas. I think, Michael eloquently said it, that, dietary supplements got funded more money than some of these areas. And
is that true? Is that true? That's insane.
And so, again,
it just blows my mind.
So look, that's the response I wanted to hear from you. What do you think about the funding in these areas, especially when it comes to, you're looking at the numbers here, as you can see, some of the areas that are kind of key and detrimental to some of the health disparities that we're seeing in the minority and Latinx community, and seeing the limited funding that goes towards those disease areas.
I'm particularly appalled at the violence against women percentage. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that there needs to be, what you're doing is right. You have to create a movement. You have to get enough people to listen and to understand and to care. And once you kind of get that central mass of a voice, then you can go to Congress and you can go to the people that make the decisions to fund all of this and say, hey, this is a problem. And there are a lot of people that care. And when we all join together and we say the same words in the same direction, people are going to listen, and they need to. And this is obvious. This is painfully obvious why they need to. These things are real problems. They're real. They impact everyone. I can go down this list right here and think of someone close to me that has been impacted by every single one of these things. And it has a ripple effect, really. Some of this stuff does not just affect the person. Like, let's take opioids, for example. Addiction and opioid addiction specifically runs prevalent in my family. And it not only affects my brother, who's the addict. He's doing a great job right now. He's got a year of sobriety. I'm really proud of him if he ever listens to this. And but it affects the family members as well. There isn't a day that goes by that I'm not worried that when the phone rings, something's going to happen to him. And it just kind of keeps you up at night. And all of the things that go along with opioid addiction are societal issues as well, right? He had to steal to afford his drugs in his habit. He had to do things that, he got involved in violence and all kinds of stuff. He was incarcerated for a period of time. Don't get me started on that and the inequities that exist in that world, but it's cascading. And to see the percentage of funding that is just for that one specific, I have a story for all of those things on that list. To see the funding level for something like that is just sad.
Yeah, and again, I think, as you also touched on, a lot of these areas affect our veteran community. So you can see how shocking it was for us when we started putting this slide together, because each of these areas, as you can see, has high prevalence of veterans included.
Of course, yep.
Again, I think that's kind of reason why we've kind of curated the type of messaging that we're doing, because we've started to realize that there's so many inequities and health disparities that we have to tackle. It just has to be highlighted in order for us to know where the next steps are and how we could address this. And so, for me, one of the major thing with, joining forces with Michael and other Howard alumni members that's part of our team, it was really, what can we do as a community in order, with the experience, knowledge, and ability that we have to bring awareness to this. And so that's why we created, BIOS for All, which is really a movement to get individuals to sign up and contribute, their resources and clinical information in order for us to have a better system that addresses, all health disparities that for women and minorities and the BIPOC community. And so, yeah, for us, it's, I've signed up myself. Don't know if you've got a chance to go on the site yet and signed up, but
I did, yes.
You did. So if you wanted to share a little bit, I'll share why I signed up, and maybe that'll give you a little bit of time to think why you're so passionate around it. And this is a story that I've shared, with the world that I held in for a long time. In 2014, a routine clinical eye visit for my twin daughters. Noticed that there were some, issues with, their retina. And so we were then, it was New York at the time, and we were asked to go and see New York Eye and Ear, who then confirmed that they had retinitis pigmentosa, which is a rare eye condition, both of them because they're identical twins.
Right, wow.
And so, for me, this is a movement that's passionate along with the other disease areas that are affecting my family. But, it's a little different when it's your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little different when it's your kids. And so I've been spending the last couple of years really galvanized and staying in tune with Next Gen Sequencing, the platform, and being able to come up with what we're doing now in Indigenous Health, and to trying to identify these rare genetic areas of disease that we could predict a little earlier using, AI machine learning, so that we could have a chance to, increase diversity in trials and get my daughters in trials that have a strong representation of women and minority women in the trial, that they could have, effective treatments. They're 21 now. And so I'm hoping before I leave this earth that we'll come up with something that be able to benefit them. And so that's why I've signed up.
That's great. Wow, what a touching story. How are they doing now? Are they in school?
Yeah, in school, third year in college. Did
they follow your footsteps and go to Howard?
So no, they ran the other direction. Too big of shoes to fill. They looked at, I did pretty well at Howard with a 3.7 GPA. So they're like,
nice.
We don't want that pressure. We're gonna have those old teachers talking about your dad used to be such a great student.
That's funny.
They went down to Florida. They went to Nova Southeastern down in South Florida area.
Okay.
But absolutely.
Good for them.
We've been able to change their diet. So a lot of the things we're talking about with Indigenous Health is, looking at nutrition, looking at, genetic profile. And so because of my background, we've been able to kind of keep their visual line of sight to about 60% over the last 5 years. So it hasn't deteriorated as fast as it could if we were just walking around not knowing that they were diagnosed. So have made some, dietary switch and make sure that they're taking, and eating the right foods in order to slow it down, because the only alternative at the time was vitamin A, which then damages their reproductive organs.
Oh, geez.
So I was left with very little option.
Right.
I chose the route of trying to make sure that they ate right, and some of the, herbal alternative medicine that we could use in order to kind of slow the degeneration down. So how about you? Sign up.
I was thinking about that question and thinking about why I did and why it's important to me. And there's several reasons, actually. I think most fresh on my mind, my mom, she was my best friend, and she struggled with cancer for 3 years, and she recently passed away a couple weeks ago. And we were very fortunate, I would say, to have her with us as long as we did, because she had access to incredible clinical trials that did very specific genetic testing on the type of cancer that she had, and they had targeted therapy that she was able to take advantage of. And her quality of life was, for the most part, pretty good for 3 years until it wasn't. But and she had access to two different clinical trials, actually. It really made a big difference. Unfortunately, had we found out earlier that she had cancer, it would have been, treatable instead of just trying to prevent slow the progression. So the more opportunities we have to learn about diseases like that, the better. I mean, I said it, I kind of touched on it with my brother and opioids, but cancer is no different. It impacts the person, but also the family as well. I have several small kids that were very close to her, and the ripple effects of going through something like that is just, it's profound, and it leaves a mark on you and your life forever. But also, so there's 3 reasons. That was the first. The second is my beautiful niece, Gabriella, is actually of African ancestry, and she's healthy, thankfully. She's wonderful. She bounces all over, bounces off the walls, but talks a mile a minute. But, I think that but it's a personal reason for me. I'm close with her. She's part of my family. And I think that I want to give her every opportunity that she can and her kids can in the future to be healthy and see these things that could be coming down the road, and tackle them head on and have as healthy and long of a life as she possibly can. And then the third is being a veteran. I think that there are a lot of unique things that attract people that join the military to the military, right? When I read some really interesting research about PTSD not too long ago, and they said that there is some sort of, and I am not a scientist, so I don't have the science words, but there's something that is inherent to some people that makes them predisposed to PTSD and how they suffer from it. Thankfully, I don't have that as one of my my conditions, but I know a lot of people that have spent a lot of dark years suffering from PTSD, and it's done so many horrible things to them, to their families, to their life after their service. And I just wish so much every day that some of those friends that I have, could benefit from the military like I have. I look at it as such a positive experience. It made me who I am. But they look at it with so much negativity because of what PTSD has done to them and done to their quality of life. And that's just unfortunate, because they fought so valiantly for our country. And it's really unfortunate. If there's a way that we can, figure that out and try to prevent suffering like that from happening, I am all for it. I know too many, and it leads to suicide too. I'm sure have lost several battle buddies over the years. I mean, it's been 10 years or more since I left the military, but there's still folks that I served with that I get the call that, hey, so-and-so took their own life, so-and-so passed away. And it never gets easier to hear that. So all of those reasons and so much more is why, if I can be a part of the change, I am all for it.
Appreciate it. And that's really what, again, I think, as you've gotten to know myself and Michael, we're really trying to lead the charge on. I think the time is now. I think the opportunity to galvanize individuals around these points that I think, at a dinner table is some of the conversations that we can start having around health and health disparities that are affecting some of the, the minorities and women population, and how to increase those clinical trials to have better treatment for all is our main goal. And I think, again, as you touched on, I think the points that relate with us, other than just being two individuals that are in those populations, right? Me being an African-American male and you being a female, that are missing in these trials. I think the connectivity of our role and support that we can use for veterans. I think like you touched on what they've done for this country. The least we could do is make sure that, whatever ethnic background they are, we know that, they're having the best treatment being provided to them with the best data and the best clinical trials that address some of the diversity issues that we just talked about. So look, it's been a pleasure again. Always good to chat with another combat medic. Wanted to leave the last question for you, if you had any questions for us, and take it away.
Well, I didn't really, it's not necessarily a question, but I didn't really touch too much on what Ibility does and how we can work together. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to touch on that just for a second. I had the opportunity to participate in an international challenge competition in 2018. So it was a bunch of disabled veterans from around the world, and they came together in Israel with all of these incredible, smart, innovative folks that wanted to help veterans and help the cause. So in 72 hours, they built these incredible physical prototype solutions to address that disabled veterans challenge. And it really transformed their life. In many ways, they could take that prototype solution home, and it was starting to add value to their life again. One example, just to crystallize it, there was a girl who used to surf prior to being in the IDF. And she was paralyzed from the waist down in combat, so she could no longer surf. And in 72 hours, her team built her an adaptive surfboard, and she was quite literally out there on the beaches of Tel Aviv surfing again. So giving that power back, that excitement, that enjoyment, that autonomy back to that veteran, it meant a lot, and a spark woke up in her. And going through that experience of challenge competitions was really powerful. I saw the value in it. I did 2 of those same style competitions in Cleveland for the VA. And then in 2020, I was supposed to take the show on the road. Still working for the VA. They wanted me to do more challenge competitions around the country, building solutions to help disabled veterans. It was so great. But then COVID hit. So what do you do now? We pivoted our model and we made it virtual. And we were successful in executing 5 virtual challenge competitions, and each one focused on a different subset of the essential workforce. And we built solutions that help keep essential workers safe and their clients safe during the pandemic. And let me tell you, there were so many times I actually cried. I was just so moved by how many people wanted to rally behind this problem and help essential workers and help their communities and help the world stay safe and stop the spread of COVID. It was incredible. And what I learned was that challenge competitions are an effective model for products like that surfboard. They also work for digital solutions. If you're trying to create something, to modernize a particular process, they work for programmatic solutions. And I think that they really are just a fun and engaging way to get people focused on a specific problem, talking to the person that's going to benefit from it, and using all of this diversity on the teams to come together and come up with a solution. It's a really, really amazing thing. So learned about what the incentives were for being a woman and being a service disabled veteran. And I decided to start my own business. And I did this about 5 months ago, but our core capability is challenge competitions. And we bring people from all walks of life together to focus on a problem and come up with a solution. Not just a theoretical solution on a PowerPoint in a 3-minute pitch deck, an actual physical prototype solution. And if it's digital, it's a dynamic wireframe where they can visualize their process in it. But the point is that you're actually working together, creating something in a really fun and engaging way. And I think that challenge competitions would be amazing for the problem that you guys are trying to solve. I think bringing people together, creating awareness and energy around the problem, and coming up with creative solutions to address it could really go a long way, igniting the flame for this movement.
Well said, and I think over the last couple of months, it's been a treat to at least get to know what Ibility is working on, your extreme excellent background that can actually help us pull that off at Indigenous Health. And so the partnership just made perfect sense to bring two combat medics together and solving problems along with our
That's
amazing
right.
teams on both sides. And so I like the energy and the story that this create, because again, I think what we definitely need is individuals that have seen, what a lot of these different health disparities have caused on communities,
Yeah.
because that's how we're going to be able to address and solve those problems, is from individuals that have gone through some of the horrific health disparities and have dealt with, siblings and mothers and fathers that have been suffering from some of these disease areas. And so I've come to embrace these challenges as well over the last year and a half that I have been exposed to them as well, and see a lot of value in how we can create, unique solutions. And that's one of the good things about, what we're doing together, is to start highlighting those different challenges that could bring some light and some solutions to, this health disparity and lack of diversity in clinical trials. So with that said, I think, it's been always a pleasure
Likewise.
to talk to another medic. Looking forward to the ideas and solutions that we could craft through this challenge that we're working on putting together. And definitely would love to be the change that we want to see in the next 20 to 30 years, especially when it comes to women, minorities, and our veterans, and how we deliver their health care.
Amen to that. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I see great things in the future.